Losing your home, a nightmare that's on the rise. By the end of this year, 45,000 homes are expected to be repossessed. And today came a new prediction. Next year, it could jump to 75,000. That'll take repossessions close to levels not seen since the recession of the early 90s. That's worrying for the government. Today, the Prime Minister announced more help for struggling homeowners.
Hard-working households that experience a redundancy or significant loss of income as a result of the downturn will be able to defer a proportion of their interest payments for up to 2 years while they get their family finances back on track. This measure is in addition to our protection for the unemployed, who after 13 weeks can claim help with a mortgage.
This is all about trying to keep people in their homes. The new plan is called the Homeowner Support Scheme. If you lose your job or suffer a big drop in income and you fall behind with your mortgage, then you should be able to defer a proportion of your mortgage interest payments for up to 2 years. The government will underwrite the scheme, so homeowners will have to pay the interest back. But if they can't, then the government will step in and pick up the bill. Lenders, of course, need to agree. But Gordon Brown says that many of the big mortgage lenders have already signed up to the plan. That's potentially good news for Daniel Druce in Macclesfield.
We slipped into our second month's arrear on the 1st of October.
We spoke to him 8 weeks ago after he'd lost his job and fell behind with his mortgage payments. His BMW was his pride and joy. Today, he's about to lose his car, but he's hopeful that the new mortgage scheme will give him some breathing space so he can keep his home.
It's been really, really stressful. I think I'm not sleeping particularly well. It is really, really hard. And this is just the sort of thing that I think the government need to take a look at, because I think some of the things that they've done in the past, they've been a bit of a token gesture really, but this one really does sound like it could make a big difference for us and a lot of other people.
The government hopes the new scheme will give the economy a boost by reducing the fear of repossession, but opponents are sceptical.
As always with Gordon Brown, particularly on these housing announcements, he makes these big announcements, he encourages news organisations to run the headlines, and then we find down the track that they don't work in the way that they were built, and I give that health warning about this one.
When the government came forward a few weeks ago with the beginnings of this plan, we discovered it only covered less than 1 in 10 of people who were in arrears. So I think we do need to see the small print.
Any move to help would be welcome. The difficulty is, as we're now finding out, is the devil is in the detail. Originally we thought this would cover mortgages up to £400,000. It would appear now, and people are checking, that it would only be a proportion of the interest payments.
The aim is to stop more of this, repossessed houses going under the hammer. The scheme should go some way in making mortgage interest payments more affordable, especially for middle-income families, as we enter a likely recession. But it's not clear yet what the potential cost to the taxpayer could be. Emma Simpson, BBC News.
Well, joining me now is our business editor, Robert Peston. Robert, I suppose with these kind of forecasts, 75,000 thereabouts, the government had to do something.
Yeah, that's right, George. I mean, the Council of Mortgage Lenders, which represents the banking industry, has forecast that just this year, 2008, there'll be 45,000 homes seized by banks and sold. That's double the previous year. And they privately told ministers, this is what I've learned, that it'll rise again to 75,000 next year, which is within a whisker of the record set in 1991. So that would have been an extraordinary amount of misery for families, because there's very little, actually, as devastating for a family than being turfed out of the family home. Now, this is a complicated scheme. It basically removes the risk from banks, which give families experiencing payment difficulties a couple of years grace to get their finances in order to get a new job. Unclear at the moment how enthusiastic the banks are. The government is saying they're reasonably enthusiastic. We'll have to wait and see how effective it is.
Well, what's your judgment on that? Very, very briefly.
Very briefly, I think it's clever. I think that most banks will give it a go because they won't want to be seen to be turfing families out. The big question mark is this repossession avoided or simply delayed for 2 years? And a lot of that will depend on whether the economy starts to recover over the next 2 years.
OK, Robert, thank you. And in the Queen's speech today, the government announced plans for 14 new pieces of legislation. There'll be a new UK-wide bank